And I guess I propose to you this scenario that when someone dies, that death comes to take them to the afterlife. But instead of death being this creature that I remember from my heavy metal albums, death instead has kindness and compassion. That he takes you to the afterlife and he interviews you along the way. And while he does, you have the opportunity to dictate a letter to be read from the empty chair you would have previously sat in at the family's Christmas table. Tonight, I'll read those letters. And so sit back and listen. Experience the words of those who perhaps have a similar story, those we have loved, as they speak to us from the empty chair. The following comes from 34-year-old Paul, who died in a farming accident, speaking to his sons. Dear Paul Jr. and Silas, I still chuckle at your names. I should have known when I didn't marry just an ordinary church girl, but the preacher's daughter, that I would get strong biblical names for my boys. I didn't argue about those names when you two appeared a few minutes after each other. I'm a little jealous of the bond that you have. My two boys, spitting images of each other. They're my pride and joy. I thought about handing out cigars in church, but your mama got the better of me. It was one of those sideways glances sort of things that brought me back to reality. Her daddy's the preacher. Her mama played piano. I'm sure it would have been 2 sermons for me if I had went ahead in my plans. I never intended this to happen. My intention was to see you grow up to be strong men who worked hard, loved the Lord, and treasured your wives and your families. I tried to be that example. I know that there were seasons of my life that it seemed that you only saw me when it was time to wake up and when it was time to go to bed, but that's the life. If I wanted my own farm one day, I had to pay it that way. I felt like I missed a lot. In fact, it aggravated me because it seemed that farm life, there's always one more thing to do, and guys my age are the ones who get voluntold to do it. That was the story. I should have been more careful working that close to the PTO shaft on that tractor. It would have taken just a few minutes for me to recognize the danger I was in. But I just wanted to come home. I just wanted to be with you. I got sloppy when I bent over looking at the other side of that thing, and the next thing I know, death is shaking me, and I'm being taken to the other place. Boys, it's interesting when you meet death. He's not evil as what was portrayed most of my life. In fact, as we stood there looking at what had become of my body, I'm sure I saw compassion in his eyes. He asked me what I would want to say to my family from the empty chair at Christmas this year. And I thought a moment, and this is what went through my mind. Paul and Silas, I'm sorry that someone else is going to have to walk you on this journey to manhood. I have to accept that my part will be limited to this letter. It won't be enough to contain everything I have to say, but let me focus on these things. Number one, I want you boys to know that true manhood is not in what you take, but in what you give away. I want you boys to watch what gives man a legacy. I want you to watch Grandpa. Mind what he says. He may not be the one who brings you the most Christmas presents at Christmas time, but when it comes to his decision to live unselfishly, there's not a better man. That act produces legacy, and legacy is what makes a man. Number two, I want you boys to mind your ma. She is an amazing woman. Your ma got all the love and respect that I could give her, and she deserved so much more. From your mom's example, one day I want you to look for a wife. If you can find someone like I found, you'll find a treasure. You see, boys, women aren't here for what they can do for you. Women are to be valued and treasured first, and from that, you reap the blessing. I'm sure I did. Your mama gave me her heart, and then she gave me you. Finally, I want you boys to remember that love that is real comes from God. Make it your goal to learn to love like He loves, unconditionally and unselfishly. You see, none of us deserve it, but because of Jesus, we have it if we want it. I know your mama and grandma are going to pray you through to salvation. When the time comes, accept it, in part because I'm a little jealous right now. I want to be able to be with you again. I know the coming times will be hard, but don't run from suffering. Embrace it. Many times it's the pain of life that reminds us we can't do this without God. I'll be thinking about you, boys. I'll be waiting again to see you. Love you, Daddy. The next story comes from a 4-day-old little girl who went by Rey Rey. She died of a birth defect and wanted to write a letter to her parents. My name is Ray Lynn, but my mommy and daddy, they call me Rey Rey or Ray of Sunshine. I've been called that since the second ultrasound when they found out I would be a girl. You couldn't imagine the excitement. I could literally feel my mommy's happiness. My daddy made jokes that his oldest child being a girl would keep him from dressing like Grandpa when he got older. They were so happy. Every night they would sing Johnny Cash songs, and my daddy would tease my mom that he was going to name me Billy Bob so I'd learn to fight like some boy named Sue. Mommy was certain that he wouldn't. Well, how do I know this stuff? Because I am beautifully and wonderfully made. It was about 18 weeks that I started to hear. At first it was muffled, but things got clearer and clearer. I then got a pretty good awareness of where I was at. I could feel things, and sometimes I just needed to stretch, so I'd push out with my hands and feet, and sometimes I'd feel Mommy push back. Kind of made me happy. When she was happy, I could feel it. It was a different kind of energy flowing through me. I remember when they built my nursery, that energy came again. I remember the baby shower, and it was there again. I remember when I was about to be born, the energy changed. It wasn't happy energy anymore. I sure don't know why things changed for Mommy, but I heard a strange man talking about something called a trisomy. Born with extra chromosomes in every part of my body, they said. That strange person said it would just be easier to let me go and let my mommy have a D and C. It would be easy, they said. But then I felt something new coming from my mom. She made it clear that I would be born, and I soon was. I was quickly snatched up and taken to a place with letters on the wall. All I wanted to do was sleep. But people kept poking me and kept on bothering me. And it wasn't too long before I got to see Mommy and Daddy, but I could tell they weren't happy. They never sang me another song. Daddy just held Mommy for 3 days outside that warm box that I was in. And on the 4th day, I met death. I woke up to the box being open. There was a really bright light. These long, beautiful, slender arms reached out to me, and they cradled me against a warm chest. I went up and up, the whole time feeling the energy I used to feel when Mommy was happy. Death said I could write a letter. I had to ask him what a letter was. When he told me, I thought for a minute and asked him to write this. Dear Mommy and Daddy, I hope that one day those feelings of happiness will come back, because when you were happy, I could feel it too. This was not your fault. Thank you for letting me see the light, if only for a short time. By the way, Aunt Sissy is here, and she sings Johnny Cash to me every night. We say that death wrote for 47-year-old Tyler. When Death asked me if I wanted to dictate a letter, I thought to myself, who am I going to write to? I don't have any family. I make it a point to push people away from me, especially when they don't agree with me. So maybe I can just tell you my story. To know me is to know I've won a lot of arguments in life, but I haven't made any friends. I argued a lot about that last election. You know, the one everyone says was stolen. I watched my news and was convinced that everything would get bad. I am not a fan of you-know-who, and I am not a fan of you-know-what. But when we're facing this glorified flu, that's it, nothing more. I got something to say. I've been sick before, and if I'm meant to get it, I suppose I get it, even if I don't even think it's real. I mean, why would the world stop for a disease that had such a small mortality rate? That was my question when I asked the boss when he closed down our shop. I didn't understand how one governor could do one thing and the governor right next door could do something different. What's wrong with people? Leave me alone and I'll leave you alone. I still don't really know how I caught it. One night I just woke up shivering, then it was like the next day the energy was all sucked out of me. I didn't get tested. I just thought I'd stay to myself and I'd get through it like every other time I got sick. I couldn't shake it though. After a few days, it got to a point where I couldn't breathe. The weight on my chest was unbearable. I couldn't breathe. It got to a point where I couldn't even stand. What was I supposed to do? People know me. I got opinions about everything. If I called 911, people are going to know that I caught it, and there's going to be a line lined up for all those people who are going to rub it in to tell me that I should have known better. Well, I thought to myself, then I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to make a hot toddy, sleep it off, and off to bed I went for the night. I vaguely remember gasping. The weight on my chest was just unbearable. And then all of a sudden, it was like a shot of electricity hit me. I awoke with a jump, and it's dark, except for this cold light surrounding death here. He said he'd take me to the afterlife. And then a large angel pointed me to something that looked like a tunnel. You know, maybe it would have been better to me to win a lot less arguments, but to have people around me. I wish I hadn't died alone. The final letter tonight comes from Grandma, who simply is writing her family. Dear kids and grandkids, the Bible says that one day you will stand before Jesus and your desire is to hear him say, "Well done, good and faithful servant, enter into the joy of the Lord." I want you to know that I have run a good race. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Kids, I have prayed for you every day you were born, or every day from the day you were born. I prayed for your spouses. I prayed for my grandchildren. I watched so many times the devil try to take you from me. There was Peter's constant need to please and the anger that he grew, especially when he and Daddy never connected. There was Eric's diagnosis. There was Eric's rebellion. There was a time with Junior that I thought that boy would never learn. There were pictures of Junior, he would never calm down, and there was that boyfriend Dana brought home at 16. In each case, I realized I couldn't do anything in myself to change you. And my house in heaven is the spoon I broke on Eric's behind. There's that first cell phone I had to buy just to know where Dana was. There were the tears I shed over the relationship between Daddy and Pete. There were the pictures of Junior getting his bachelor's degree. If I made one mistake in life, I made it too many times about me. It was like there were times I left you kids feeling guilty, feeling less than because you didn't quite do what I thought that you should do. I know at times I shut you out thinking I needed to be super mom, super wife, super woman. I know at times I used my busyness to avoid my problems. And in avoiding my problems, I missed out on some of the greatest moments of your life. I won't be at Christmas this year. I left my pie and nut roll recipes in the left drawer on the desk. I'll miss my spot at this gathering, but I know this wife, mama, and grandma wants every chair at her table in heaven to be full. Remember the way to get there. Believe on the name of the Lord Jesus and you will be saved. I love you all very much. Grandma.